What's up everybody, James Bushell here, and I'm back at you with another video. Today I will be talking about Euron Greyjoy, and I will speculate who he works for. The purpose of this video is not to make a bold proclamation, but to get the mind thinking and try to figure out what Euron is potentially up to. Just a disclaimer, I will be talking about the new Dampere chapter, The Forsaken, that George R.R. Martin read at Balticon. So if you have not read that chapter, you may want to go ahead and read it. Come back to this video and let me know what you think. I should also point out that The Forsaken is not an official chapter yet, so some of the things that occur in the chapter may very well change by the time The Winds of Winter is released. Also, I will take this time to remind everyone that the Hype Swatch will be doing an extensive breakdown of The Forsaken chapter on June 11th, 8 a.m. Eastern. The link to that video will be in the description. So yes, this chapter was very interesting, and easily becomes one of my favorite chapters in the whole series. And essentially we learn that Euron Greyjoy is potentially an endgame bad guy. He's up to something nefarious, obviously, and according to the text, he has made over 1,000 blood sacrifices. But to what end? Now, I'm not doing a complete breakdown of the chapter, but to properly set up what's happening, the chapter opens with Euron, the Dampere Greyjoy, as a prisoner of Euron. We're going to assume that Euron was able to locate and capture the Dampere after his escape, after Euron was proclaimed king of the Iron Islands at the King's Moot. In captivity, Euron pays Dampere a visit and forces him to drink Shade of the Evening, which of course is a drink peculiar to the warlocks of Qarth and used in Dany's visit to the House of the Undying. In A Feast for Crows, it was mentioned that Euron had captured 3 warlocks of Qarth, whom were searching for Daenerys for retribution to what she did to the House of the Undying. But it was later confirmed in this chapter that Euron did indeed have the warlocks, as one is kept in the belly of his ship, the Silence, with his legs cut off, repeatedly saying the words, Pre, insinuating that he is Piet Pre, or perhaps one of the warlocks that were with Piet Pre. The visions that Dampere has while under the influence of Shade of the Evening are fascinating. A few in particular interested me. The first being that Euron reveals his eye to the world, and Euron calls his eye, which has always been referred to as his crow's eye, to his blood eye. There was already speculation made when his eye under the eye patch was just referred to as his crow's eye. First off, we know that Bloodraven in the books uses the three-eyed crow to interact and speak to Bran in his dreams after his injury. There's also been speculation by many that by looking at Euron's coat of arms that there is a potential connection to Bloodraven, due to the one red eye in his sigil, as Bloodraven himself has only one red eye, and now potentially Euron has one red eye. There has also been speculation that Euron had green dreams as a child. In the chapter The Reaver, from A Feast for Crows, Euron has this quote, "When I was a boy, I dreamt that I could fly," he announced. "When I woke, I couldn't. Or so the Maester said. But what if he lied?" This to me is very similar to Bran's dream he has with the Three-Eyed Crow in Bran 3, A Game of Thrones, when the Three-Eyed Crow was encouraging Bran to fly all throughout that chapter. And of course we all find out that Three-Eyed Crow is Bloodraven. All that being said, Dampere referring Euron's crow's eye to his blood eye is very interesting. Is he saying that his eye is red? Now let's talk about all individuals in A Song of Ice and Fire who has red eyes. Those who have red eyes include Melisandre, Ghost, the Ghost of Highheart, Bloodraven, and the Children of the Forest. Can we draw any parallels between these individuals? Well, first off, the Ghost of Highheart, Bloodraven, and Ghost are albino. Mel, we all speculate, is glamored, so her actual eye color might not be red. And the Children of the Forest, they may just all have inherently red eyes as a species. But I think we can all say that all these individuals are either dreamers or imbued with some sort of magic. When it's all said and done, will we say the same for Euron Greyjoy? Another interesting vision that Euron has is when Euron tells Euron, "Kneel, brother," the crow's eye commanded. "I am your king. I am your god. Worship me, and I will raise you up to be my priest." Euron responds, "Never. No godless man may sit the sea stone chair." In which Euron replies, "Why would I want that hard black rock, brother? Look again and see where I am seated." It is here where Euron sees Euron seated on the Iron Throne, and impaled on the spikes were all the gods of the Seven, even the stranger. A bunch of foreign gods were impaled as well, such as the Great Shepherd, the Black Goat, the Three-Headed Trios, the Pale Child of Bacalon, the Lord of Light, and the Butterfly God of Nath. And then, of course, there was even the Drowned God himself, festering with the rest. Now, why this is interesting to me is there was one glaring omission from these dead gods, and that is none other than the Great Other. Is there a connection between Euron, Bloodraven, Melisandre, the Children of the Forest, and the others? I don't know. Once again, I'm not making any bold predictions here. I'm just trying to ask some thought-provoking questions. And that question is there a reason why the Great Other was not a part of these group of dead gods? I would like to know. So another interesting passage occurs from this chapter, occurs in Euron's second Shade of the Evening dream, in which this occurs. The dreams were even worse the second time. He saw the long ships of the Iron Board adrift and burning on a boiling or blood-red sea. He saw his brother on the Iron Throne again, but Euron was no longer human. He seemed more squid than man, a monster fathered by a kraken of the deep, his face a mass of writhing tentacles. Beside him stood a shadow in woman's form, long and tall and terrible, her hands alive with pale white fire. Dwarves capered for their amusement, male and female, naked and misshapen, locked in carnal embrace, biting and tearing at each other, as Euron and his mate laughed and laughed and laughed. Now what I want to talk about here is the shadow in woman's form, long and terrible, her hands alive with pale white fire. Now instantly my mind went to one person. When I think of a woman, shadows, and fire, one name comes to mind, that name being Melisandre. But why is her fire white? Has something happened to Mel to possibly change her? Here is now where I direct you to Tony Teflon's great video on why Melisandre is the Night's Queen. I believe in this video that Tony eloquently states why he believes Mel is going to be the Night's Queen, and I will link that video in the description. And I advise you all to check it out. In Tony's video, he mentions the Dark Horse figurine that was officially licensed, and it was of a blue Melisandre with a pale blue flame. Tony was the first one to bring this to my attention, so all props to him. But yes, it raises some questions, like, will Melisandre be converted to the others? Will she be the Night's Queen? Is she part of the Shade of the Evening dream? I believe so, but time will tell. And it also, if she is indeed the person's dream, is she working with Euron in some way? Another interesting aspect of this dream are these dwarves who are biting and tearing at each other. This is the second time in a Shade of the Evening dream that these dwarves are mentioned. From Dany's House of the Undying dream, the first vision she sees states, "In one room, a beautiful woman sprawled naked on the floor while 4 little men crawled over her. One was pumping between her thighs. Another savaged her breasts, whirring at the nipples with his red, wet mouth, tearing and chewing." Now, it doesn't specifically say, dwarf in the House of the Undying vision, but it can be insinuated that the 4 little men perhaps were dwarves. And in both cases, there is biting and tearing involved. I can't quite make it out, but perhaps there is a connection between these two visions. My friend T-Baby told me that she thought the dwarves could potentially be about the Children of the Forest. And that would be very interesting, as that would potentially connect Bloodraven, the Children of the Forest, and Mel in these visions, all dancing around Euron in the Iron Throne Room. Now, the one thing I can't figure out is, what does Dany have to do with all this? At the end of this chapter, Euron is tied to the prow of the ship, and Euron is still going to go pursue Dany. Now, in the House of the Undying, in the Bride of Fire section of her vision, this is what she sees. Her silver was trotting through the grass, to a darkling stream beneath a sea of stars. A corpse stood at the prow of a ship, eyes bright in his face, gray lips smiling sadly. A blue flower grew from a chink in a wall of ice and filled the air with sweetness. Mother of Dragons, Bride of Fire. Now, the section being called the Bride of Fire, we kind of assume that these are potentially the people that she is going to marry. The first part of the vision, we can infer that was called Drogo. The third, the blue flower that grew from a chink in a wall of ice, has been speculated forever that it is Jon Snow. Now, the second part is interesting. A corpse stood at the prow of a ship, eyes bright in his dead face, gray lips smiling sadly. I know a lot of people have speculated for a long time now that that is essentially Euron Greyjoy, and he would be the second to marry Dany. But now I firmly believe that the corpse stood at the prow of a ship is Euron personified through the damp hair's corpse. I believe that Euron will keep his brother tied up on the prow of the ship long after he is dead and use him essentially as a dead ornament for his ship, because that's just how Euron rolls. And that's the first thing Daenerys will see when she encounters Euron. Is Damphair's corpse tied to the prow of the Silence? Now the question, remains, why will Dany marry Euron? It's a good question. Perhaps Dragonbinder worked, and her dragons are enslaved, and Euron will use this as leverage. How does this tie in with a potential plot, I laid out, of Euron working as an agent of the Great Other, with Bloodraven and Mel, possibly the Children of the Forest? I'm not quite sure. Once again, I'm not making any predictions here. I'm just trying to figure all this stuff out. Now, to close this all out, I want to reference the chapter from A Feast for Crows, The Reaver. I recommend everyone goes back and reread this chapter because it's great and there's some potential, good things in this chapter to be taken away. A passage from The Reaver has always stuck out to me. It's when Euron and Victarion are discussing finding Dany and bring her back so Euron can produce a worthy heir. Something always stuck out to me from this passage, and here is this passage that I've been talking about. Victarion was turning to go when the crow's eyes said, "A king must have a wife to give him heirs, brother. I have need of you. Will you go to Slaver's Bay and bring me my love?" I had a love once too. Victarion's hand coiled into fists, and a drop of blood fell to patter on the floor. "I should beat you raw and red and feed you to the crabs, the same as I did to her." "You have sons," he told his brother. "Oh, base-born mongrels, born of whores and weepers. They are of your body. So are the contents of my chamber pot. None is fit to sit the sea-stone chair, much less the iron throne. No, to make an heir that's worthy of him, I need a different woman. When the kraken weds the dragon, brother, let all the world beware." So who is this him that Euron wants to make a worthy heir for? Him. It's such a simple pronoun, but it could potentially change the game. I've always wondered, what was this all about? Who the hell is him? Is Euron an agent of the Great Other? Is the Great Other him? Once again, I am not sure, but it's always piqued my interest, the phrasing of him. And it really does make me believe that Euron is an agent of some entity. And Euron is definitely going to play a large role of what's yet to come in A Song of Ice and Fire. So there's still a lot more analysis to be done with this chapter, The Forsaken, and it will be broken down by the Hypes Watch this Saturday, June 11th at 8 a.m. If you're watching this video after June 11th, the complete video will be in the description. So yeah, guys, this chapter does bring up a lot of good questions, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if you think any of this, is possible, who this mysterious him that Euron wants to find a worthy heir for is. So if you liked this video, hit the like button, share it on social media, and subscribe. Until next time, adios.